Dexter was a serial killer who spent his entire life hiding this dark secret from everyone, friends, family, and colleagues. Yet throughout the show's 8 seasons, 15 people discovered the truth about Dexter's deadly double life. This list doesn't include the people who only found out once they were wrapped in plastic. The first person on this list was of course Harry Morgan, as he was the one who made Dexter a serial killer. Dexter's adoptive father was a seasoned Miami homicide detective and was the first to recognize Dexter's dark tendencies. After discovering young Dexter killing animals, Harry knew his son was displaying classic signs associated with serial killers. Rather than turning him over to the authorities or seeking psychological help, Harry took a different approach to protect Dexter from society, or rather protect society from Dexter. He created the Code of Harry, a strict set of rules allowing Dexter to channel his violent urges against killers who would slip through the cracks of the justice system. Harry's code became Dexter's guiding principle, a moral framework for a life that otherwise might have ended in prison or execution. When Dexter was 20, Harry suggested he target a nurse named Mary, who was suspected of killing patients as his first human victim. Dexter went through with it and a killer was born. However, Harry's plan backfired when he accidentally witnessed Dexter dismembering a victim, Juan Rhinus, in what was a gruesome, shocking display.
What's wrong? Are you okay?
Just stay away. Please, stay away.
The horror of what he had nurtured was too much for Harry to bear, and he took his own life 3 days later. In his suicide, Harry left Dexter with an enduring legacy, a code that made him one of the most notorious serial killers of Miami. The second person to discover Dexter was a serial killer was his biological brother, Brian Moser, who shared a tragic history with him that defined both of their lives. The brothers had witnessed their mother's brutal murder as children, left for days in a shipping container with her dismembered body. While Dexter was adopted by Harry and given a moral framework to manage his dark impulses, Brian was abandoned by the system, allowing his violent tendencies to develop unchecked. Years later, Brian tracked down Dexter as the ice truck killer and was thrilled to find that his younger brother shared his urge to kill.
Imagine how I felt when I tracked you down and found out you were exactly like me.
The two brothers shared a unique bond, rooted in their trauma and dark tendencies. Eager to deepen this bond, Brian tried to lure Dexter further into his world by asking him to kill Deb. However, Dexter's code forbade him from harming the innocent, and he ultimately chose Deborah over Brian, making the difficult decision to end his life. Do you think that Dexter should have killed him? Comment down below. The third person on this list was none other than Detective James Stokes, who was one of the few people who sensed Dexter's darkness early on.
Something off about you, Morgan. I should have seen it before. You're hiding something. And one day I'm gonna figure out what it is.
A seasoned cop with sharp instincts, Stokes never trusted Dexter and took every opportunity to express his disdain for him. His suspicions were only heightened when he noticed Dexter's eerie composure at crime scenes, where others would typically be disturbed. Determined to prove his suspicions, Stokes began tailing Dexter, eventually finding enough clues to suspect that he was the Bay Harbor butcher. Stokes' investigation led him to break into Dexter's apartment and steal his box of blood slides, clear evidence that Dexter was a killer. The investigation finally reached its peak at a remote cabin in the Everglades, where Stokes caught Dexter in the act.
Jesus Christ, Morgan. Jesus fucking Christ, you're the Bay Harbor butcher.
After a struggle, Dexter managed to imprison Stokes in a cage, but was faced with the moral dilemma of whether to kill Stokes or not. However, fate intervened when Lila killed Stokes by blowing up the cabin, believing it would protect Dexter, making Stokes one of Dexter's unintended victims, which brings me on nicely to the next person. One of the only people to find out Dexter was a serial killer and accept him, Lila West, entered Dexter's life as his Narcotics Anonymous sponsor. At first, she seemed to offer him emotional support, helping him deal with his addiction to murder under the disguise of heroin abuse. But Lila quickly developed an unhealthy obsession with Dexter, sensing a darkness in him that fascinated her.
I'm the only one who can see behind it, and it doesn't scare me. It's why we belong together.
Their relationship grew intimate, and they became lovers, though Dexter eventually ended it after realizing her instability. Lila's fixation on Dexter only intensified after the breakup, leading her to discover more about his violent side. In her most drastic act, Lila found Stokes imprisoned in the cabin and chose to kill him by setting off an explosion rather than freeing him. thinking this would protect Dexter and finally get him to love her again. It didn't, and Lila ended up wrapped in plastic, something which I was so happy to see. Oh my god. The next person was Miguel Prado, a charismatic Miami district attorney who's one of Dexter's few friends, actually. When Miguel witnessed Dexter holding a bloody knife over the body of Fred Bowman, he saw a rare opportunity to take justice into his own hands by partnering with a killer. Miguel encouraged Dexter to act on his instincts, eventually presenting him with targets he felt deserved to die. The two men bonded over their shared frustration with the justice system, and Miguel, kind of like Harry, saw Dexter as a trusted ally who could take care of criminals slipping through the legal loopholes. However, Miguel's lust for violence soon spiraled beyond Dexter's control. After Miguel murdered Ellen Wolfe, a defense attorney who had done nothing to warrant death, Dexter recognized that his friend, who saw him as a killer, had to go, and Miguel ended up dead. One of the most underrated characters of the show, in my opinion, Lumen Pierce, stumbled upon Dexter's secret by accident. A recent victim of Jordan Chase, Lumen was haunted by her traumatic experiences when she witnessed Dexter killing Boyd Fowler, one of her attackers. Dexter came very close to choosing to kill Lumen, but he ended up sparing her as she was innocent.
So what's your plan here? Nurse her back to health so she can go to the police? She gives the cops enough to track you down, then everything falls apart. Harrison grows up visiting you on death row.
Although she initially feared Dexter, she eventually grew to trust him, recognizing him as someone who could help carry out revenge on the men who had harmed her. Dexter in turn saw Lumen a reflection of his own need for vengeance, and he agreed to help her hunt down the remaining members of the Barrel Girl gang. Their partnership grew into a deep mutual understanding and eventually a romantic relationship. Together, they eliminated the men responsible for her suffering, each kill bringing Lumen a step closer to closure. However, once the last member of the gang was dead, Lumen's desire for vengeance faded, and she chose to leave Dexter, her need for violence no longer there. Her departure left Dexter with a sense of loss and made him think that he could never achieve true companionship because of his dark nature. Lumen was the first person to discover Dexter's true identity and not end up dead. One of the most disgusting characters in the show, Jordan Chase, was a successful motivational speaker with a dark side. He was the leader of the Barrel Girl gang, responsible for the horrific abuse of women. When Chase realized that Dexter and Lumen were targeting his accomplices, he became aware that Dexter was a serial killer. Although he never discovered that Dexter was the infamous Bay Harbor Butcher, he quickly understood that Dexter was no beginner to murder and was willing to kill to protect Lumen and serve justice. In a tense final showdown, Dexter and Lumen confronted Chase, ending his life and dismantling his criminal enterprise. Jordan Chase's death was a moment of justice for Lumen and a small moral victory for Dexter, who felt a fleeting sense of purpose through their partnership. Nicholas Galway's discovery of Dexter's secret is one of the most unusual in this video, both for how it happens and how quickly he forgets. Dexter visited Nicholas Galway at the retirement home in the confessional booth as part of an investigation. Galway had a connection to one of Dexter's victims, and Dexter needed to confirm details from Galway's past to fully understand his victim's background and motives. However, when Dexter arrived, he quickly realized that Galway, now elderly and suffered from severe dementia, could barely recognize anyone, greeting him as if he was an old friend. Seeing Galway's confused state, in a rare moment of honesty, Dexter confessed his darkest secret, saying aloud that he was a serial killer.
I've killed people. A lot of people.
At first, Galway responded as a faithful Catholic might, reminding Dexter that murder is a mortal sin, yet within moments, he forgets the conversation entirely.
Where were we?
Dexter thanked Galway and left, feeling great. In this strange moment, Dexter got a brief release from his secret, safely confessing to someone who would never remember it. Deborah Morgan, Dexter's adoptive sister, discovered his secret in one of the best moments of the show. She walked in on Dexter at a church altar as he killed Travis Marshall, witnessing her brother's act of murder firsthand. At first, Dexter's quick thinking and convincing lies calmed Deborah down, but she still had doubts. Over time, memories from the past, especially her encounter with the ice truck killer, started to make her wonder if Dexter had a hidden life. Determined to find out the truth, Deborah searched Dexter's apartment, where she found his blood slides and tools that he used for killing. Her worst fears were confirmed.
Are you a serial killer?
Yes.
Her brother was a serial killer, and she had no idea. When Deborah directly confronted Dexter, he couldn't lie anymore and told her everything about his double life. This discovery changed their relationship forever, leaving Deborah to struggle with the painful truth that her own brother was a killer, and the more painful reality of still trying to love him. Hannah McKay, a killer with her own dark past, uncovered Dexter's secret under unexpected circumstances. Initially targeted by Dexter after he confirmed her role in several murders, he brought her to his kill table, sedated and wrapped in plastic. Yet rather than going through with the ritual, Dexter chose to cut her free and make love to her, acting on the irrational attraction he felt to her. The thought of killing her really turned him on, it seemed. Their connection on the kill table grew into a relationship where they both understood and accepted each other's dark side. Hannah directly asked Dexter why he planned to kill her, and he simply explained that he only targets bad people.
Why? It's what I do.
Kill people.
Bad people.
This answer helped Hannah understand Dexter's double life, and she accepted him completely, not bothered by his need to kill. The rare time where Dexter was truly accepted for who he is. Isaac Serco, a powerful mob boss, discovered Dexter's secret while seeking revenge. He began his investigation after tracing the last signal from Kaja Soraka's bracelet to Dexter's boat, a critical clue linking Dexter to the death of Victor Baskov, Isaac's lover. Driven by the desire for vengeance, Isaac confronted Dexter, forcing him to admit that Victor was not his first victim. Through careful observation, Isaac deducted that Dexter was a practiced killer, understanding the patterns and motivations that guided him. While seeking revenge for Victor's death, Isaac also acknowledged Dexter's skills.
My. You couldn't have described that better if you'd been there yourself.
Even teaming up with him when he faced threat from his own organization. It was one of the weirder friendships that Dexter had. Maria LaGuerta, the ambitious lieutenant at Miami Metro, began suspecting Dexter after finding a bloodslide at Travis Marshall's crime scene. Her discovery reignited her investigation into the Bay Harbor Butcher case, a case previously closed with James Dokes as the alleged killer.
Jesus, what if Dexter is the real Bay Harbor Butcher?
LaGuerta's relentless pursuit led her to gather evidence that proved Dexter was the Bay Harbor Butcher, and she arrested him. Dexter, however, turned the tables by setting her up to look as if she fabricated evidence against him. Recognizing that LaGuerta was determined to expose him, Dexter understood that her persistence posed a great threat to his freedom. He plotted to kill her, but in a shocking turn of events, Deb ended up doing it for him. Eventually, he staged her death to appear as if she had been killed in a crossfire with Hector Estrada, bringing her investigation to a tragic end. LaGuerta's discovery and pursuit represented one of the closest calls Dexter has ever faced, forcing him to take drastic measures to protect his secret, killing an innocent. Dr. Evelyn Vogel, a renowned neuropsychiatrist and specialist in psychopaths, knew of Dexter's secret long before most. Vogel had been involved in his life since he was a young child, working closely with Harry Morgan to design the code that would channel Dexter's violent tendencies. Vogel understood Dexter's need to kill on a clinical level. He even took pride in his adherence to the code, viewing him as a successful psychopath. This long-standing awareness made her a unique confidant for Dexter, as she offered insights into the origin of his behavior and guided him through his psychological challenges. However, Vogel's bond with Dexter came to a tragic end when her son, the brain surgeon who shared Dexter's darker inclinations, murdered her. Vogel's death left Dexter without one of the only people who understood him fully. It's weird, isn't it, that almost everyone who found out about Dexter's secret ended up dead. The penultimate person on this list, Zach Hamilton, was a young man who shared Dexter's dark impulses and found out Dexter was a killer under circumstances that could have ended his life. After killing his father's mistress to stop his father's infidelity, Zach found himself on Dexter's kill table. But instead of following through, Dexter saw himself in the young man and chose to spare him. Recognizing Zach's potential, Dexter became a mentor, teaching him the code and instilling in him a sense of responsibility for his actions. Zach became almost like Dexter's son and was a rare person who knew his secret and didn't see him as a threat. However, their relationship was short-lived. Zach soon became a victim of the brain surgeon, taking away yet another person who had accepted Dexter for who he truly was. The final person on this list, Oliver Saxon, also known as the brain surgeon, uncovered Dexter's secret in a chillingly methodical way. By hacking into Dr. Evelyn Vogel's computer, he accessed her files, which detailed Dexter's life history, motivations, and dark inclinations. This knowledge gave Saxon a disturbing insight into Dexter's mind, and he became jealous of Dexter's ability to maintain a perfect cover life while hiding his murderous urges.
You sure as hell knew how to help Dexter Morgan. You taught him how to deal with his